Assalamu alaikum and Salam Sejahtera. I thank the Indian High Commissioner to Malaysia, His Excellency Mr. Nagabhushana Reddy, and the Malaysia-India Heritage Group in particular, for this opportunity to deliver my talk on the anniversary of Gandhi's birthday. It is a matter of pride to us that the Malaysia-India Heritage Group takes a keen interest in drawing public attention to overlapping areas of concern in the historical heritage of both India and Malaysia. Therefore, in this talk today, my approach to Gandhi will be in the Malaysian context. It is of interest to note that the late Durai Rajasingham, civil servant and writer, had once compared Mahatma Gandhi to my paternal uncle, Tunku Abdul Rahman Putra, who had freed our country from colonial rule and became the first Prime Minister. Gandhi and Tunku are both founding fathers of their respective nations. Let us be reminded of the words of Abraham Lincoln, who once declared that, and I quote, "Any nation that does not honor its heroes will not long endure," end of quote. And of Winston Churchill, who said, and I quote, "A nation that forgets its past has no future," end of quote. When we remember our heroes, we connect with our heritage, and we are inspired to walk in the footsteps of our heroes in the service of our nation, our citizens, and our fellow human beings. As all of us are acutely and painfully aware, the world today is embroiled in conflicts and ideological differences that threaten to destroy our human civilization. It is very important for us to restore hope for the future of our respective countries and the world at large by celebrating the lives and ideas of great statesmen like Gandhi and Tunku. The best way to remember and thank these leaders is by imbibing the values that they had struggled for. Values like unity, non-violence, magnanimity, openness, empathy, and compassion. When Tunku was born, Gandhi was already 34. Gandhi was already practicing as a barrister in South Africa and championing the rights of the Indians. There is a statue of Gandhi in the Kalasalai Tamil School in Sungai Siput, and there is also a statue of Tunku in Parliament House. And interestingly, both the statues of Tunku and Gandhi are seen holding a book. What coincidence! Both Gandhi and Tunku were born destined to lead their countries to independence from British colonial rule. It was the Sultan of Kedah who had signed away Penang to the British in 1786, paving the way for Malaya to be colonized. And it was his great-grandson who was destined to bring freedom once again to the land. The great-grandson was none other than my uncle, Tunku Abdul Rahman Putra. In the case of Gandhi, many believed that Gandhi was the incarnation of Lord Rama, destined to usher in the Ram Rajyam, or Kingdom of God on earth. Both Tunku and Gandhi shared a common title. Gandhi was known as Father of the Nation, a title bestowed on him by Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. Likewise, Tunku was also known as Father of the Nation, or Bapa Malaysia. Indeed, Gandhi was affectionately known as Bapu, which means father. Tunku was also seen as the father of all Malaysians. In the words of Tunku, and I quote, "I can feel the pulse of this nation. I can read the hearts and minds of the people, because truly I am not the Prime Minister of this nation, but the father to all the peoples who live here." End of quote. Both of them were called to the bar at the Inner Temple, Gandhi in 1891 and Tunku almost 60 years later in 1949. A few years ago, both Gandhi as well as Tunku were honored by the Society of the Inner Temple in London on the occasion of the Society's 400th-year anniversary celebration. It is believed that childhood influence played a positive role in the lives of both Tunku and Gandhi. Mention must be made of their mothers, Putlibai and Manjalara. Both of them played a major role in the upbringing of Gandhi and Tunku respectively. Both Gandhi and Tunku believed that independence is meaningless without the spirit of service. According to Gandhi, and I quote, "To give service to a single heart by a single act is better than 1,000 heads bowing in prayer." End of quote. A similar sentiment was shared by Tunku, who said, and I quote, "Voluntary work is also patriotism of a high order, because it asks a man to live for the service of his country. It is a treasure we should guard and respect." End of quote. True to the sentiment expressed, Tunku set up the Rumah Miskin, or home for the destitute, during the war years, especially to take care of the dead railway workers who escaped from the Burmese borders into Kedah. These escapees were emaciated and diseased. Tunku eventually contracted the infection, but continued to ignore the risk. In later years, Tunku became sentimental whenever he remembered the home, saying that it was the prayers of the victims that contributed largely to his becoming Prime Minister. Interestingly, both Tunku and Gandhi demonstrated great concern for lepers. Among the patients in the Shivagram ashram was a leper in the advanced stage of the disease. He had come to the ashram of a sudden, saying he wished to rest his bones there. Gandhi said, and I quote, "How can I say no to you? Who will look after you if I don't?" End of quote. Gandhi used to wash the sores on his feet every day. During Gandhi's visit to Orissa, he insisted on meeting the lepers. He said, and I quote, "Why should I call these lepers my brothers if I do not mix with them?" End of quote. And he insisted that each poor leper be brought to him. He shook hands with them, patted their heads, and spoke words of comfort to them. Now, about Tunku and leprosy. One day, Tunku gave a lift to a man who turned out to be a badly afflicted leper. Tunku was horrified just looking at him, and the image of the leper lived on with him. After that, he and his wife Sharifa Rozia adopted 2 infants from leper parents, and every year he sent food to the lepers. On Merdeka Eve 1957, someone from the Malayan Leprosy Relief Sanatorium brought a little baby girl to the doorsteps of the residency and said he wanted to give the girl away for adoption by Tunku. Tunku and Gandhi were reluctant politicians. Gandhi kept out of politics after some years of active involvement with Congress politics. As for Tunku, he kept on refusing offers for him to contest for the presidency of the main political party of the time, namely UMNO, the acronym for United Malays National Organization. There is an interesting story I wish to narrate about what made Tunku change his mind about joining politics. One day, Tunku went to Kedah for a court case. As you know, he was then the deputy public prosecutor. There in the courtroom, he heard voices calling out his name. He could not see anyone. Only voices were heard sounding like that of his father, Sultan Abdul Hamid. After the case was over, Tunku went to his father's room in the old palace nearby, reclined on his father's rocking chair, and fell asleep. He then dreamt of his father. "Putra, Belalah rakyat, Putra, free the people. Tunku then woke up, but since he was very tired, he fell asleep again. Whom did he see in his dream? It was none other than Indian nationalist Mahatma Gandhi and former Indian Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru. The signal was unmistakable for Tunku. He knew at once that, like it or not, he was destined to lead his people to freedom. Tunku became president of UMNO, and the rest, as they say, is history. On 29 October 1962, as Prime Minister of Malaysia, Tunku paid homage to the great Mahatma at Rajghat, where Gandhi was cremated by laying a wreath of honor. In Tunku's own words, and I quote, "Gandhi's name will be cherished not only by Indians, but by all who love freedom. He has been the font of our inspiration in our fight for freedom." End of quote. Dear friends, Gandhi was an apostle of non-violence. According to Gandhi, and I quote, "Non-violence is the greatest force at the disposal of man. It is mightier than the mightiest weapon of destruction devised by the ingenuity of man." Of all his achievements, Tunku was most proud of having achieved independence through non-violence. Tunku, in his speeches, emphasized the importance of, and I quote, "food instead of bullets, clothing instead of uniform, and housing instead of barracks." End of quote. Long after he retired, he wrote, and I quote, "Even if I am credited with nothing more, I can at least thank God that I was able to lead our country along the path of independence and beyond, without one drop of blood being shed." Dear friends, respect for our great leaders holds together our society and our nation. The values that they embody guide us to become useful members of our society and the world community. We walk in the path and our lives become more sublime. Our nation benefits. It is our hope that in a world fraught with wars, exploitation, greed, hate, and ingratitude, the younger generation will not forget to remember the legacy of our past heroes. The best way to remember them is to emulate their virtues. If we are truly serious about commemorating Gandhi's birthday anniversary, let us remember what he had said on his last birthday, and I quote, If you really want to celebrate my birthday, it is your duty not to let anyone be possessed by madness. And if there is any anger in your hearts, you must remove it. End of quote. Likewise, it is interesting to add what Tunku had said on his 64th birthday. And I quote, "It will be a lovely birthday present for me if you will only give some thought and attention to my advice on the need to live together in peace, goodwill, and harmony." End of quote. To wrap up, and in conclusion, let us not forget to take pride in the contributions of great luminaries whom we should remember as national treasures on this blessed anniversary date of Gandhi's birthday, which is also honored by the international community as the International Day on Non-Violence. Thank you.